today we're going to take a look at this little thing right here. This is the FlipFuel. It's a device that can transfer leftover fuel from one canister to another so that you don't need to leave home with a half-empty canister or even leave that half-empty canister in a pile with others. Yeah, it's a pretty neat deal. Let's jump into it. So there's a lot of different stoves out there that use different fuels, but one of the most popular is canister fuels and canister stoves. These typically have an isobutane propane mixture. Manufacturers use this mix because it's the best balance of performance and weight. While propane alone can be used in some serious cold temps and it works really well at high altitude, it must be stored in a heavy-duty canister, which is not ideal for bike or backpacking. Isobutane does not require those heavy-duty canisters, and it also packs a little bit more punch as far as the fuel is concerned for boiling and cooking and whatnot. But it doesn't work as well at higher altitudes, and it definitely doesn't work as well in colder temperatures. So the mixture of propane and isobutane is the best of both worlds. Most of these canisters and fuels are made in one of three warehouses. That being said, there are some variations between mixtures. This MSR fuel right here, this has 20% propane, 80% isobutane. During my testing, I've mixed Jetboil fuel, MSR fuel, Snow Peak fuel, GSI fuel, and, well, I've lit up my pocket rocket with all of those mixtures, and I've had no issues. All right, so a small isobutane propane canister typically has a gross weight of around 200 to 210 grams, and it says right on the outside. The net weight of the fuel inside is 100 to 110 grams. So when you're filling up a canister, it's important to understand the capacity and how much fuel you have left in the canister. So outside of the FlipFuel, and your two canisters, I highly recommend you have some sort of scale so that you can weigh the canisters. For reference here, I can typically get 12 to 15 boils out of a small canister boiling a half liter of water at or around 8,000 feet of elevation. This typically depends on conditions and stoves, of course, but once you understand your average boil time and the grams it takes, you will typically be able to dial in how much fuel you need for a trip, which will not only help you save money in the future, but it will also help you understand your needs for future trips. So one thing to note here is that these fuel canisters, they don't last forever. They do rust, and I've seen a lot of this firsthand. This could lead to issues, especially when you start to find rust on the threads here. So I would probably remove the fuel or at least use up this canister and toss it instead of using this particular canister to put more fuel into. Before I get into the ways of using the FlipFuel, I just want to take a quick moment to let you all know that this video is supported in part by Terravel tires. Like many cycling brands, there's a passionate group of cyclists behind Terravel. Their tires are designed and inspired by the routes and terrain they've ridden. And that's why you may notice Terravel tire models are named after specific regions with distinct terrain and even specific trails in some cases. So to learn more about Terravel's development process and a bit more about their tires, you can click on this card right here or find the link in the description below. All right, so why do you need the FlipFuel? Well, simply put, it allows you to save money. It allows you to put two half-filled canisters in one, or it allows you to buy in bulk and fill up a smaller canister, since these small canisters are a ripoff compared to the large ones. All right, let's go over to 3 ways to use the FlipFuel. The first way is small canister to small canister, basically condensing 2 into 1. This process is likely the most relatable for folks, at least it was for me, and it's pretty darn easy. After taking out one of the canisters from the freezer and taking one of them off my Gas Force Air register in my house, I weighed the canisters for a baseline. I did this a few times because I wanted to see how different the canisters and fuel transfer would react to empty versus semi-empty canisters and temperature differences. So what I found is that it works best when the canisters are about halfway full. I also found that it is imperative that your intake canister is actually very cold. I put it in the freezer. And the outtake canister, the outtake canister is warm. And they recommend either putting it in the sun. I put it inside because I didn't have sun. I also found that shaking the canister a bit actually speeds the transfer, especially at the end of the transfer when you start to hear it fading. So the best outcome was when I had a canister with 162 grams and one with 147. I chilled the intake canister for about 5 minutes and put the outtake canister near my heater in my house since there was no sun out. After threading the canisters and turning the FlipFuel on, you can hear the rush of fuel at first and it slowly fades. Within 15 seconds, I transferred 38 grams of fuel. Now I tried this over and over and over with small to small canisters, and that was the fastest amount of transfer I got with roughly half-filled canisters. Whew. Should probably do this outside or at least in a garage with the garage door open. Ooh. So another use is transferring fuel from a small canister to a larger canister. This is a great way to simply reduce your canisters if you have multiple canisters with little left. You will need a larger canister with not much fuel in it, but you would take the same steps or similar steps that I just talked about to downsize your canister collection. Once I have enough in the large canister, I'll just deposit the fuel from the large one into a smaller one for an overnight trip or a weekend trip. All right, so the last use is to use a large or bulk canister to put fuel into a small canister. This is the most economical way, as the large 16-ounce canister from MSR right here is 27 USD, and the small 4-ounce MSR canister is 17 USD. That's a big difference. All right, so by doing this, you just need to be a little extra careful. And I'll still make sure the intake canister is cold and the outtake canister is rather warm. So what I found is the easiest way to do this is to turn the lever on for 5-second intervals and weigh in between each interval until it's just under the gross weight of the canister. This way I can avoid overfilling. All right, generally speaking here, this is a little dangerous. At least it seems so. I did overfill the small canister twice, but nothing exploded on me. But when I did do that, I used this little bleed button on the FlipFuel to just quickly vent out some excess gas to ensure that the small canister wasn't overfilled. And that's it. Pretty neat little product that can help you condense your canisters and save some money along the way. The FlipFuel just might change the way we think about trips before, during, and after. And at 41 grams, it's certainly something that I would consider bringing on an extended trip. Now you can also just reuse the small canisters and buy the super cheap butane online. But from everything that I've read from MSR and other stove companies, they recommend using the mix because that is exactly what these stoves were designed to use. One thing I would really like to see on the FlipFuel is some sort of purge or valve to ensure that you don't overfill the canisters. As each time I was transferring fuel, I felt a little nervous, not gonna lie. But if you know how much fuel is in each canister, especially if the net weight of the fuel does not exceed 110 grams, at least in the case of these small canisters, you should be good in theory. I also realized that it was nearly impossible to unload all of the fuel from one canister. So all of the canisters that I've emptied completely still have a little bit of fuel left, if that makes any sense. Maybe that's just a safety measure already in place. I don't know. The FlipFuel, it's nothing new. This stuff has been around for a while. And actually, there's something that looks just like this on Amazon. What the FlipFuel offers for a premium is a custom anodized version. Plus, it's a US-based company to interact with for warranty issues and other customer service requests. You can purchase the FlipFuel for $35 at flipfuel.co. Anyways, let me know what you think about the FlipFuel or just this process in general. As always, leave a comment in the comment section below. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, paddle further.